You asked me for a more detailed step-by-step tutorial on this hologram message animation, so here it comes. To create this effect, you'll need two things: a clip of someone interacting with the device and some messages to display. I'm using stock footage for this, but you could just easily use screen recordings or real message screenshots. Start by importing everything into your media pool. Then drag your clips into the timeline, place the background video on the lowest track, and stack your messages on top of it. Now resize and reposition those messages wherever you want them to appear. You can do this in two ways. First, you can just drag them around, but make sure the transform tool is active. If it isn't, just click this rectangle to enable it. Or, if you prefer more precision, tweak the zoom and position settings directly in the inspector. Once everything's in place, select all your clips and turn them into a Fusion composition. Then switch over to the Fusion tab. You'll see that the program has already set up a node structure for you, so there's no need to re-import your media. But I'm going to adjust things slightly because I want to animate the messages separately from the background video. So first, I'll connect the background video together with its merge node directly to the media out node while keeping the messages on their own branch. We still need a background for the messages to be visible, so I'll just take the background node and connect it back to our messages. Now, any effects we add to the messages will happen before the video node. For this hologram look, I'll first add a brightness contrast node and reduce the gain in the alpha channel to make them slightly transparent. Then I'll use a drop shadow node to give them some subtle depth. Next, let's animate everything. I'm going to add two types of movement. First, I want all the messages to float upward together. To do this, I'll add a transform node after the effects. That way the shadows move with them. I'll set position keyframes at the start and end of the clip, then adjust the Y value to make the messages rise. Second, I want each message to pop up one after another. For this, I'll add a transform node to each message's media in node. Then I'll keyframe the size, starting at 0 for the first frame, then scaling up to 1 when I want the message to appear. By default, they'll grow from the center, so if you want them to emerge from a different point, just adjust the pivot either in the inspector or by dragging this crosshair. I also like to add a fade-in effect, and you can do this by keyframing the blend parameter in each merge node, matching the timing of the pop-up animation. Go to the frame where the animation starts, set keyframes for blend in the respective merge node, and set the value to 0. Then move to the last frame of your pop-up animation, set a keyframe for blend again, and turn the value up. If you've got multiple messages, repeat this for each one. Here, I'm making them all appear at the same speed, so I'm keeping the spacing between keyframes consistent, but you can stagger them however you like. Finally, for smoother movement, open the spline editor, select all keyframes, and press this icon to smooth the splines. This is what my final node structure looks like, and now let's try to understand what happens here. We have the video of that guy scrolling in the background. You can see that it's in the background on this yellow connection. Everything else is connected to it by a green line, which means that whatever this is, it happens in the foreground, separately from the background video. The merge nodes are simply there to wire things together, and the media out node is needed to create the output. In the foreground, we have our messages as separate input nodes. They pop up one after another, also separately from each other, which is achieved by these transform nodes. The merge nodes just wire them together, and we also animated the blend mode here, so they caused the messages to fade in too. But what about this background node? If I remove the background node, you'll notice that the messages won't be visible anymore. And that's because they are connected via the green lines, which means they are supposed to be a foreground, and the foreground always needs a background to be visible. Hence the background node, where the background is set to be transparent. If you don't like the background node for whatever reason, you can set the first input as the background by pressing Ctrl T on Windows or Linux or Command and T on Mac. So here we have our single message animations. Here we have some effects like brightness and shadow that are applied to our messages. And the last transform node over here is the upward movement applied to the result of all the previous nodes. Because that's how Fusion works, right? With each node you add, you apply some kind of effect to the result of all the previous nodes. And that's why we need all these nodes, which basically make up our animation, to come before our background video, because we don't want this to be affected by any of the other effects. I hope this helped you understand this animation better. Thanks for watching.